This is Global Order. I'm Hindol Sengupta. I'm delighted to have Rear Admiral Mukul Asthana with me once again today. We're going to talk about a big development from the Cabinet Committee on Security today. India has just cleared the purchase and the procurement of a set of highly effective, high-class drones. And of course, the clearance, big news coming there, the clearance of two new nuclear-powered submarines. What does all of this mean? We're going to learn from Rear Admiral Mukul Asthana, who's going to take us through some of these issues and their impact on India's future security needs and its aspirations therein. Thank you, Admiral, for joining me.
Hindol, good morning to you, and thanks for having me with you once again. Always a pleasure talking to you. So we look forward to having a good discussion on these.
It's a pleasure, Admiral, all mine. I want to begin by asking you about the drones part of it. There has been a lot of talk, Admiral, on the drones, especially on the northeastern borders. As the northeastern borders in this entire Manipur crisis has become more and more inflamed, there has been talk about weapon supplies via drones, drugs, of course, all kinds of things, which have become more and more problematic as days have gone by. Now, for a year, there's been a concern about whether the Indian armed forces were doing enough to counter these things. And of course, we've read lots of reports about how this was being countered. But this new procurement, a tri-services procurement, these Predator drones have been procured for the Indian Air Force, the Indian Navy, and of course, the Indian Army, really shows a particular kind of seriousness, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So let me just put things in more clearer perspective. First of all, drones or the remotely piloted aircraft, as they are termed, these are the new age weapons in use, and the world has seen proliferation of these in the last 25 to 30 years. And in the last 10 years, the advancements and technologies available with these birds has really been greatly enhanced. All this has not been lost on the Indian Armed Forces. I must mention here the Air Force, the Army, and the Indian Navy have been operating drones in our own inventory. As a matter of fact, I must mention that for the last almost about 20 years, the Navy has been operating Herons and Searchers. And same is the case with the Indian Army and Indian Air Force. And since you mentioned about Northeast, I would say that the India's borders are almost about 15,000 kilometers long, whether it is the international border on the Northeast or the line of actual control with China, or for that matter, the LOC with Pakistan, and again the IB we have on the deserts and the western borders, are extremely sensitive areas where we have seen what all has happened in the past, where adversary has tried to come in, hold positions, and we have obviously thwarted the attempts in good measure. In the same manner, even at sea for that matter, apart from the fact that we have 7,500 kilometers of coastline and many, many million square kilometers of EEZ, and the areas of operation, areas of interest of the Indian Navy are extremely large, as you know. They range from the entire Arabian Sea, from the African coast on the west up to the Malaysia, Indonesia on the east, and they go down to 30 degrees south latitude. These are huge areas, these are areas of responsibility, and areas of interest go even further south, the Southern Ocean. So there has always been a very great requirement to enhance our ISR capability. ISR is information surveillance and reconnaissance capability. To keep these areas, whether they are land borders or our sea areas, to have better observation of these. And towards this, what you have just referred, the MQ-9B Predators, this case has been long awaited, in fact, for the three services. And it's very heartening to see that it's finally seeing, light of the day. must mention of these 31, 16 will come for the Indian Navy. And I'm sorry, 15 will come for the Navy and 16, that means 8 each for the Army and the Air Force. I must also mention here that the Navy has already been operating 2 of these MQ-9s, which are called Reapers, which is an older version and it's an unarmed version, for almost last 3 years. And the results that we have observed and seen have been extremely good. And there's no doubt that this was the way forward. So, having said that, I think this is the right thing for the government of India, for the nation, and for the armed forces to go in for these 31 birds.
Allow me to ask you one question in this regard, Admiral. One of the points in the news cycle, so to speak, where a lot of people got rather astonished and asked a lot of deep questions was when Israel was attacked by a swarm drone attack, right? And many people wondered whether India could face something similar. Now, with this kind of acquisition of better, higher caliber drone technology. I understand that, last time we spoke, you said, many of these swarm drone things are, cheap drones, they are used in bulk. But of course, manipulating them, ensuring that they fly in one, a gusto, so to speak, requires a lot of coordination. But, could India face things like that? And, what are the kind of attacks that these predator drones will really protect us from?
So, you asked 2 different questions, and let me answer accordingly. First of all, an attack by swarming of drones is a very different game in terms of in any warfare, for that matter. And this capability does exist in the West. China is fast developing it. And I'm sure we are doing it ourselves, and our own armed forces are well seized with this possibility. When it comes to predators, these are very large aircraft. These are high altitude, long endurance, remotely piloted aircraft, and they have been battle proven in Afghanistan, in the West. The US has been using it. There are many other countries that are using it also. The Quad nations are using it. And this will actually bring in a lot of battle space transparency. It will improve the maritime domain awareness. These bring very high technologies with them, along with artificial intelligence, to be able to improve your I4, S2 ISR, which is, in broad terms, it is the maritime domain awareness and the battle space transparency, basically improving your command and control, computers, communication, intelligence, information, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So, 31 of these will really be able to keep our land borders with our adversaries on the west, the northern borders, the eastern borders, our own areas, wherever there are some disturbances happening within the country. They can be observed well, because I must mention here that the kind of radars, the predators, which are also called sky guardians for the Army and the Air Force, they will have forest penetration radars. Whereas the ones for the Navy, which are called sea guardians, require a different kind of radars, which are maritime patrol radars. And they can provide great information in terms of the kind of targets they track. As a matter of fact, they can tell you what exact silhouette of that ship may be, or that vessel may be, what may be the length of that. So it's very easy to get that information in real time, correlate with the data you have, and be able to say that, okay, so-and-so ship or so-and-so platform is there in that area, and you'll be able to easily tell and recall what capabilities they may have and what capabilities the adversary may pitch.
Predator drones are also capable of carrying Hellfire missiles. Uh, you know, particular use of this kind of capability, if you could explain, please, Admiral.
Yes. So far, what we have operated, the Reapers, which are MQ-9s, they are unarmed drones. And now what you're getting is an advanced version of that, which is called Predators, MQ-9 Bravos, MQ-9B. And these are the armed versions. And they carry a plethora of sensors and weapons, I must mention. So what they will have with them are the smart glide bombs, precision gliding bombs, the GBU-39s and other kind, which can be dropped onto the target, whether at sea or on land, with great pinpoint accuracy. They also carry, as you mentioned, the Hellfire missile, the anti-ship missile or land track capable missile, which again has extremely high uh, accuracy. And in future, we also have plans to integrate our own weapons, which are being developed by the DRDO and our various laboratories. These will include the anti-ship missiles, the anti-air-to-air missiles, but that will happen as time passes and as we go around. When it comes to sensors, let me just touch upon the sensors also for that. They have a variety of sensors which are extremely useful, making it good for keeping surveillance under all kinds of weather, whether it is day or night. And these include electro-optical, infrared. As I mentioned, they have inverse synthetic aperture radar, which is used at sea. They have advanced information system. They have various electronic support measures, including SIGINT, signal intelligence, communication intelligence. They have anti-collision devices to keep out of other aircraft, for that matter. And very importantly, what they have is the capability to launch and drop sonobuoys to detect underwater submarines at sea. And this makes the Sea Guardian very capable ASW, anti-submarine warfare platform. And Hindol, the best part is that these sonobuoys which are going to be dropped from these Sky Guardians, Predators, they are also compatible to work with the sonobuoys dropped by our Poseidon PATI, as well as the multi-role helicopters, the Romeos that we have recently procured. And these can also operate with the PATIs of the Quad Navies, increasing thereby the interoperability. So this is a hugely great, capability development.
Let's talk a little bit about how you are seeing our northeastern border and how restive it's getting before we move on to the next part of our conversation, which will be about the acquisition of these nuclear powered submarines. Your comments and thoughts at the moment about how restive our northeastern borders are really becoming, Admiral. All kinds of reports are coming in. I alluded, of course, to transference of the weapons, drugs, of course, but they seem to be getting more and more restive as the days go by, especially because the situation in Bangladesh also is quite unstable at this point in time. Your thoughts on this, sir?
So Hindol, it's very well known and to our countrymen as well as the world what all is happening, not only in the parts you mentioned, but also around India for that matter. But speaking specifically about our northeastern borders, there has been a fomentation of trouble by outside forces, by organizations which are perhaps inimical to India's interests, growing India's interests, and there have also been people from within our borders who have taken up these things against us. So it is very important that the efforts of our armed forces, of our civil administration, are spruced up to keep this under surveillance, under recce, so that they are able to check such nefarious activities. And I think the drones that we just discussed earlier, the Predators, and the Sea Guardians, which are the Air Force and the Army versions, will really come in handy at that particular time.
Let's talk a little bit, sir, now then about the acquisition of these two nuclear-powered submarines. Last time we spoke, we were talking about what would be the ideal number of nuclear submarines that India should have so that its triad is truly, at its highest point of delivering deterrence for the country. Now, is it two? We have Arihant and Arikhat at the moment. Some say it's four, some say it's six, and so on and so forth. Now, this new development of two more being added to our nuclear sub kitty, so to speak, is a very important development. I wonder how you see this, and do you see this entire force expanding even further, going beyond four?
Yeah, I think a very, very natural progression of of the capabilities that we already have right now. And you see, India had started this working with the nuclear propelled submarines many, many years ago. If I recall correctly, so 2.5 decades ago when we first had Chakra, almost 3 decades back. And after that, we have built, manufactured our own submarines, for that matter, Arihant, now Arikhat, and we are looking at more. So, the exact numbers, I think we will not speak here, but I can assure you that there are plans to have adequate numbers to be able to look after the the areas of interest, which is the Indian Ocean region as of now, because submarines are nuclear submarines, especially not only are weapons of sea denial, but they also have the second strike capability that we discussed the last time when it comes to the completion of the nuclear triad. Having said that, the other kind of nuclear submarines also are which are capable of launching, which are not only nuclear powered, they are attack submarines. They can go at very high speeds, and that is another capability that India needs to develop, and I think that is what we are going for now.
Let's talk a little bit about this second strike capability that you spoke about, sir. And I understand, exact numbers are difficult, but let's talk about these four that we have at the moment. Talk a little bit about how it enhances our second strike capability.
Well, this being a weapon of stealth and a submarine which is different from the conventional submarine in the sense that conventional submarines perforce have to go slow, have to run very silent. These submarines, when required operationally to speed up and sprint, they can very well do that. They can change their area of operation from point A to point B in much quicker time than a conventional submarine would do, where they would first find a solution about where an enemy may be approaching, go and position themselves very many days in advance, very many hours in advance, and stay there. But if there's a change of course by the adversary or there's another change of plan, then it is difficult for the conventional submarine to relocate because of this conventional propulsion plant, and also the requirement of what we call their indiscretion rate, the requirement to charge their batteries. So these encumbrances are not there for the nuclear propulsion. When it comes to having the second strike capability, we have very good land attack capability when it comes to launching nuclear weapons, as well as from the air, what the weapons, the platforms we have in the Indian Air Force. But in case required, and you need to have a second strike capability, that means you definitely want to, strike in case your systems on board and on ashore, on land, are incapable at that time, then it would definitely be very helpful to have 2 or 3 or maybe 4 of these boats strategically located under the sea, where from they can be asked and tasked to launch these weapons. But let me just enhance further by saying that these being weapons of denial and they being underwater are surveillance from the top. a satellite surveillance, a satellite by a Boeing P-8I, by the newly going to be acquired Predator drones. These are going to come in very handy to be able to build a picture for the commander, for the battle space transparency and maritime domain awareness for the commander, sure, to be able to utilize any weapon for that matter, be they warships or be they underwater submarines.
I want to come to another point now as we come towards the end of our conversation, Admiral. There has been recent reports, forever we have spoken, and even on global orders, there has been so many conversations. We have spoken about China's so-called Malacca Dilemma, the Malacca Straits through which a large amount of China's, trade happens. It's energy trade and so on and so forth. And if that choke point is sort of blocked, then it really hurts China and all of China's efforts to try and overcome this Malacca dilemma. Now, recent reports suggest one thing which really caught my eye, which is that as China pushes hard in Taiwan, could it use the Taiwan Straits, through which actually 15% of India's trade happens? Could it use the Taiwan Straits as a sort of counter choke point to its Malacca dilemma, even if it's not a counter, but just on a on an individual basis, could it use it as a choke point? Now, this Taiwan Straits part has not been discussed simultaneously with Malacca dilemma in most of the older analysis, but this seems to be something that's coming up more and more as China pushes forth in Taiwan. Your comments, your thoughts on this?
So, I think you are quite right in thinking that this perhaps could be their want, their perceived counter to a Malacca dilemma if they try and choke the Taiwan Strait. But if you see the geography there, in fact, it is not a very narrow strait, and the trade that we are going to have that we have through the Taiwan Strait can, if not very easily, with some effort, it can be made through route, in fact, east of Taiwan. So that may marginally increase the costs and time penalties for that matter, but it will not certainly be equivalent to what Malacca dilemma with China faces. In fact, Malacca also, China has alternatives to go through the Sunda Strait, which is further to the southeast, and even further to the east of that is Lombok Strait. So they also have alternatives, but there are ways and means of keeping those narrow straits also under surveillance. And that is, once again, since the topic is more on sea guardians, I must say that these birds are also capable of keeping those areas under surveillance. And especially with the large numbers that we are going to have now, I can very, very confidently say that with these large numbers, it would be not very difficult for our country to keep all areas of interest and all areas of operation in the Indian Ocean region under good surveillance.
Well, may I ask you, since you mentioned this again about how we now have deeper capabilities to protect our terrain, so to speak, both on land and sea, with new weapons, new surveillance, and so on and so forth. There has been talk after the recent Quad meeting, Admiral, that in a sense the security, framework or architecture of the Quad is moving away from the more cultural and the more humanistic attributes and moving closer towards greater securitization. Now, there's always been a conversation of how much India would contribute in such a move, because there seemed to be in the past reluctance from the Indian side. Do you think today there is, in a sense, a begrudging acceptance from India that, well, this securitization is perhaps inevitable and it should increase its own contribution to such a move?
I think moving on from trade, cultural exchanges onto armed exercises or securitization is a very natural progression, I feel. And because of the fact that the four nations of Quad also feel similarly that we must keep the areas of Indo-Pacific fairly open. We must keep them open. There should be a fair amount of traffic passing. There should be a rules-based order. No one country should have any kind of a hegemonic, aspirations there. And the trades of all countries should be able to pass with security and safety. It is therefore necessary to, I think, concentrate more on the security. And I think that is the reason why our exercises that happen at sea between the quad navies have been increasingly seen enhanced interoperability, increased levels of security exercises. It's a natural progression, I feel. So I wouldn't say that we are, we are begrudgingly taking it forward. I think it's a very natural thing, and we have it's very conscious effort by the nation, by all four nations.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Admiral, for explaining all these things to us with, as always, great, astute answers. Thanks very much for your time. And here's wishing you and your family a very happy Dashami.
Thank you, Hindol, and likewise, similar greetings to you and family. And as I said last time, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Hope we get to meet again. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, sir. Thank you.